welcome to Behind the Smiles with Dr. Sharnell Myles and Terrance Williams. Today, we are going to be talking about AI and mental health. I am really looking forward to this conversation. You know, every single day, everyone is using and talking about technology. And I know AI fits in there somewhere. VR fits in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
So that is why we have invited you to the couch.
I appreciate it.
So that we can have a great conversation about what you are doing in your professional life with VR as well as mental health and the future. VR in mental health. Yeah.
Some movies say like the future is now.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's start out. Tell us who you are.
So I am Terrance Williams, and I have been developing VR AI platforms for mental health for about 5 years now. So I worked with so many different therapists, mental health organizations, nonprofits, universities, working with so many different departments. I had the privilege of partnering with New Mexico State University. We developed a course training mental health professionals even how to build their own VR, implement AI into their own mental health practices, and also train them on how to actually use technology to better serve mental health. So I've been doing that for a while now, and I've been loving it. Loving the impact. And yeah, like you said, it's technology. You know, everybody's afraid of what AI and VR could possibly bring, but I like to look at all the benefits.
We want to keep our jobs.
Keep the jobs and not, what's that one Will Smith was in?
I know what you're talking about. iRobot.
Yeah, prevent iRobot. Yeah, and hopefully it won't get to that, but, never know. If it is, we'll see.
So for those who are listening or watching this podcast, let's start out by defining VR.
Okay.
What is VR? Because as far as I know, the goggles, playing the game, walking into the wall.
Yeah.
But I know it's much more than that. So what is VR?
So VR is a virtual experience where you put on the actual headset and you are transported into different simulations. Some people call these simulations the metaverse. So if you ever seen that other movie, and I don't know why I keep forgetting these movies. What was that movie that everybody has been talking about? Ready Player One.
Okay.
So if you ever seen Ready Player One, that is the VR on a whole different level, but that's what it kind of is. If you've seen the movie, it's a whole bunch of different worlds, simulations that you go into, and that's what the metaverse is, and that's what VR is. And I have VR, you also have like XR and AR, which is, I don't know if you've ever been in like New York and you've seen like a billboard and like these things like appear to come out of the billboard at you. That's what that is, which is another type of thing. And then you have AI, which is the little super genius that communicates with you and can get you to get A's on all your test scores. So yeah, it's a whole different thing. And then you have other stuff that goes into it too, but those are the big, I guess, three that you would say.
Okay. And so of course we are hearing a lot more about AI, VR, but I think it seems like VR has been around for a while now.
Oh yeah. I've seen like VR has been going on since like the 1900s. It's just, well, I would say 1900. I'm going to say like 1980s, 90s, but I guess it's still hundreds in some sense. But yeah, it's been going on for a long time now. The first ones were humongous. They like covered your entire face. Really couldn't do much. Now you can, go into Walmart and get a pair and just start, interacting and doing amazing things. And I think that's the really cool thing about what's been happening with VR, what people have been doing with it. So I do a lot of simulations I build with Meta Horizon Worlds on Facebook. And they have their own VR platform, and people go in there. They have their own karaoke nights. They have their own meetups. People are going to the clubs out there. I'm talking about, like full up.
Is this online or
VR.
Physically?
VR.
Really?
Yeah, VR goggles. Yeah, so people are literally spending time. Like people have been building houses, living in the house. And when I say living, I mean like they'll literally just put on a headset and just be chilling in their own living room,
like
stuff
virtually.
Like that. Yeah.
Wow. So when you think about that, being able to build a house on a VR platform and probably spending hours of the day with the headset on and actually living virtually in that house as if you were physically living in that house.
So
scary. People are, like people are putting a lot of time and energy and
putting on whole businesses, all types of things have been going on in VR. So it's really interesting. So for me, when I started building these VR simulations, I started doing it mental health, started working with therapists because they wanted to have these interactions like how we're having right now, but
Right.
virtually. So they wanted to do a session with somebody that was all the way in Georgia and they lived in Milwaukee. So they set it up to where they can have it like that. So that's how I started. So I would build offices and then they
Yeah.
would do these sessions. So
So that's a good transition. Let's sit there for a minute.
mhm.
So again, as I mentioned, you work with mental health professionals in VR.
Mhm.
And so tell me about that first call from whether it was a mental health
Yeah.
professional or a school that said, "Hey, we want you to support us or help us in creating this VR, I guess, platform." And understanding how it intersects with mental health. So tell me a little
Yeah.
more about that.
So the first call was actually an email I got. It was from a mom, and she was saying that her son was suffering from anorexia. He didn't really just when he would put food to his mouth, he just wasn't able to take bites, etc. So I built a VR simulation where I created this burger. I actually recreated her entire kitchen. And when he put on the goggles, so it feels like he's actually in his kitchen, there's a burger. And as he picks up the burger, as he takes bites out of it, the burger slowly goes away. So we started doing stuff like that, and he started learning how to be able to eat again, and stuff like that always happens. But like VR has touched so many different parts
Mm-hmm.
in mental health. Like I've built rage rooms. Are you familiar with rage rooms?
No. What is a
So
raised room?
rage rooms, like they exist in real life. So you can literally go into a room, pick up a bat, start hitting a car,
Oh,
hitting.
rage room.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes.
So I started doing that for people that this one therapist had like all the clients had anger management issues. So we
Mm-hmm.
started doing things like that. But VR and mental health has been going on for a while. Like Oxford, American Psychological Association have been doing studies on this for quite a while now. When it comes to like stress or anxiety, you're seeing anywhere between like 60% of people who participate, symptoms gone. PTSD, 90% of people that are
Mm-hmm.
experiencing these stuff is it's just gone. So I have stories for days, but yeah, it's just been a wild ride, and where it's going, it's really going into the mental health and education side right now.
Yeah. So you mentioned PTSD. I, for probably about 10 years, worked with active duty
Hmm.
servicemen. And so I do understand VR as it intersects with military servicemen, retired or active, and PTSD. And so I know that there's a lot of studies that support that work in reducing symptoms of PTSD. But can you talk a little bit more about, because you mentioned your first, I guess, client or family that you
Hmm.
supported whose son had a diagnosis of anorexia. Have you done more work around eating disorders or disordered eating
Oh, that
in
was the first.
VR?
That was the first one. Typically, when I work with a lot of different therapists, it's usually because they want stuff like group style therapy. So people
Hmm.
that have like suffer problems controlling like their alcohol, type of like an AA. Because with AA, it's already supposed to be anonymous, but when you're in VR, it's even more anonymous because
Right.
you're there, but you're not really there. So people
Hmm.
see your avatar. So you have an avatar, which you can make it look like you, which my avatar looks like me. But yeah, you can have your avatar look like whoever, and it kind of gives you that sense of control over your identity, and not wanting to put yourself out there too much. Because I think that's one of the big things that we're seeing is that people want to be able to express themselves, but do it in a safe environment. And VR is one of the best ways to do it because you can also have your meetings right then and there. You don't have to get up out your car. You can all just meet um, right then and there and just really get it done. So.
Hmm. So, what is the capacity of, maybe one particular VR program? If you have a therapist, and let's say they have an IOP or PHP group with, anywhere from maybe 8 to 12 participants, can you use one VR setting with up to 12 individuals? Is it limitless? Talk to me about
Yeah,
that.
so that's a good question. So with a lot of the platforms I build is through Meta Horizon Worlds, which is their VR platform. So they can hold up to 32 people at one time. So
Okay.
platform. So a lot of group sessions will have like 30 people, 32 people. But you can also make it lower to where you say I don't want 30 people, I only want 10 people in here.
Hmm.
But 30 is usually the max. When it's over that, we just usually create like like a portal, kind of cool,
Okay.
like a portal. People can just tap a portal and go into another separate room where 30 more people can go into. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's
Okay.
really cool. You have 30 people just all in there talking. So I have this one platform where you see this like amazing, beautiful waterfall. In there, it's like a seat of circles, like right there, like on the actually on the water behind you is the waterfall. Hear the music, you can see the fish actually swimming like under your feet, and yeah, and they use it for group therapy, and they use it for a lot of people who suffer from just abuse, even just not even just like alcohol, abusing alcohol, but also like domestic violence, things of that nature too.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Tell me, what goes into developing a VR platform or
yeah,
program?
a lot of work, a lot of if you're good at coding, things of that nature, because a lot of things you can do in there. If I want to tell an AI to have a conversation with somebody, you have to put coding in that. If I mentioned the waterfall before, I actually build that in there with my
Mm-hmm.
hands, take shapes, develop all that stuff. So it's a lot of different work to do it. It's not easy. But in my course, I teach you how to do that. In New Mexico State
Oh,
University, I teach mental health
okay.
professionals how to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Absolutely.
And so you teach a course. I'm going to get to that.
Hmm.
But let's talk about your relationship with mental health companies.
Okay.
Have you developed specifically for larger mental health companies? And what does that relationship look like?
So for me, like I've worked with like departments that have mental health departments, like for universities, where they have like students that have like their own certificate program that they would go into. So they may have like 200, 500 different students. Worked for like different hospitals that had like maybe 20 or 50 different like employees, things of that nature. So I guess it defines how you define what big is. But for me, I don't think the size of it, I think the size of it really depends on the company, because typically with like larger companies, they like to go with larger VR companies that can, do all types of things. For me, I'm kind of just, I have some subcontractors and people that work for me, but I usually just go in there and do everything myself. I'm kind of like the pioneer, trying to trailblazing it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had an opportunity to like work with like larger companies to do things, but I like where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So PTSD, eating disorders, what other specific diagnoses have
Yeah.
you built a VR platform to
Depression,
support?
yeah,
Okay.
anxiety, people that even just want to like have issues with just like stress management, things of
Hmm.
that nature.
Is there any particular problem area that VR may not be effective for?
I would honestly have to say no, only because VR, and I just wanted to make this point clear too. Like, when I talk to a lot of people, different people like incorporating VR and
Hmm.
different things, I'm not trying to say that VR is better than actual therapy or actual medicine, but it's like another option to have. And to give an example of this, we're trying to talk about PTSD a little bit. There was a veteran, his name was Jimmy Castellanes, and he was in Iraq at one time. And there was this one time they were supposed to be watching football. It was a football game coming on. So one of his jobs was they were supposed to try to go find a TV to bring back to the base. His commander told him to stay back. He switched places with his best friend. He
Mm.
sees them go off in the distance, and he sees the car explode right in front of him. They started being under attack. Helicopters starting going by, gunshots firing. He sees his best friend in the car. The whole car flipped over, burned. He
Hmm.
runs over there. He sees his best friend had passed away. He saw another one's comrade paralyzed in the same seat he was supposed to sit in that day.
Mm.
And he, after that day, suffered from PTSD. Anytime he woke up, he had sweats. Anytime he would go somewhere like public, maybe if he was going to like a movie theater, he had to check under the stalls.
Right.
He tried therapy, he tried medicine, but then one day one of his colleagues told him about VR. He went into a VR setting. He put on these goggles. He saw the same reenactment over and again, where he saw these helicopters. He's hearing these gunshots going off, and it brought back his trauma. But they were able to control that setting, and then after 6 weeks, his PTSD was completely like healed. And
Hmm.
so it's just another option to something that is already out there, because therapy works, medicine works, but there's always the one thing that you can also do.
Right.
So yeah,
Okay. Okay. Good to know. And in terms of age ranges, how do you develop those platforms based on age, and
yeah,
also maybe developmental? characteristics?
Yeah, so it really just depends. So if it's like I'm building, because I built like for like children therapy and like child playrooms and things of that
Hmm.
nature. So if I'm in there, first you can set the setting to where an 18-year-old can't be in the room. Like it could be the therapist and just a child.
Hmm.
But I also put in things like toys where you can interact and play with the toys in there, etc. Things like that. So it really just depends. But the age doesn't matter. It's just what I'm building in there matters because I'm not going to build toys for like a grown man. It might have to be like, some type of Call of Duty type of thing
Hmm.
style. But depending on what the person needs, I just make it age appropriate. And it kind of makes me different than other companies because I literally go in there and I build everything by hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you see VR going in terms of mental health?
Yeah, I think it's gonna go deeper into the mental health aspect and into education. It really just depends. Curious, where do you think it's going? Because I've heard people like Neil deGrasse Tyson say that he thinks um, that AI and VR is going to completely take over just the therapeutic world where AI can literally tell you what your
Hmm.
symptom is right there in a
Yeah.
thought. But what do you think?
So I think the sky's the limit, really. I think that we're probably just kind of scratching the surface with most of the technology that we are seeing. Being in this space for about 25 years, I've seen this evolution of how mental health is used in, or technology is used in the mental health space. And
Mhm.
so, you know, there's a few geniuses out there who
Like
are,
myself.
yes,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
who are behind
yeah.
the keyboard
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
screens. And I think the sky is the limit. But what I do know is that VR, AI, technology in and of itself is certainly a game changer for mental health,
Yeah.
especially a lot of the harder diagnoses that we are seeing, like PTSD, like depression. And it's also a game changer for the therapist as well, not
Mhm.
just, um, those who are receiving treatment. And so, like today, I told a group of therapists, we will soon begin utilizing AI in our practice, which I believe will allow a therapist to go from, sitting 5 hours in front of a client to maybe sitting 10, 15 more hours in front
Yeah.
of um, their clients, because they won't be spending as much time writing notes or doing all of those things that AI can support us in doing.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest thing is that we don't substitute AI for gold standard treatment or what a human should be doing. We don't want to lose that human touch. But how do you make sure that in the use of VR,
Yeah.
AI, we are not losing the human touch when it comes to mental health?
Honestly, as it keeps advancing, that's out the door, man.
You think
Yeah, it's
so?
out the door.
Really?
I think it's out the door because the more you were, listen, I don't write anything no more. Like when it comes to any like email, whatever, I just ask Chat GPT to do it. And I
Mm.
feel bad doing. No, I don't feel bad doing it. I don't feel bad doing it, but it helps me. It's very
Okay. How many of your loved ones' phone numbers do you remember?
too.
The
Yeah.
impact of technology on the human brain.
Yeah.
Think about it. I still remember my childhood phone number, 215-551-5859. And that is because then, I'm not going to say how long ago it was, we didn't have chat GPT, we
Hmm.
didn't have AI, we didn't have all of the technology that we have today. And so we were forced to remember telephone numbers, to do math in our heads, right?
Hmm.
But like you said, now people could just say, hey, Chat GPT, give me a
Right.
letter that says this, X, Y, and Z,
Right.
or remember this, or store it in the phone.
Yeah.
But I want you to think about that as a
Well, there's
tech
morality type of
expert,
thing to
right
it.
there. Exactly.
Right.
But if you had to go, or if you had a loved one who needed mental health treatment and that human element was removed, What do you
Yeah.
think the impact would be?
Ooh, I mean, we basically are just making like a robot, right? Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is we can't stop it. It's at this point because what happens with AI and VR is that it's actually not even more VR. It's really more AI. Is it just makes everything faster and easy. So with AI, you're literally, if you have Chat GPT, you're literally are what 1,000 IQ points smarter. Just having that app
Right.
for you, and I don't think that as a society, unfortunately, I think as society grows, it's just going to be more incorporated with AI. The problem is we'll be able to control it to the point where you can still have these, morality type of things. But
Right.
there was a scene in iRobot where literally Will Smith was telling the robot to save the girl.
Yeah.
And the robot, like I think the first time maybe he saved Will Smith, but that's a morality thing, right? Like, who to save, who not to save. But, I don't know what's going to happen with AI, but AI is getting to the point where they're even putting it in video games. Like they're
Yeah.
putting AI into Sims. Like imagine our own Sim character thinking to themselves like, "Oh, who am I? What am I?" When an AI character is having these thoughts, where's morality with them?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they're in this
Right.
simulation, they're a whole avatar, but they think they're a real person, and they're doing that right now.
Yeah.
So,
Do you feel a personal obligation to safeguard and protect um, the humanity behind or where technology and mental health intersects, so that it's not, the technology and the work that you're doing is not just about speed, about technology, but really about the person who's sitting on the other side of, that screen or those
yeah.
goggles.
I think I get that more in VR because in VR, I think it's way more possible because people are actually, you still have that interaction because even though somebody's wearing a headset, you're still talking to an actual person.
Okay.
AI, you're literally just talking to a computer.
Right.
So there is no morality. Yeah. But in VR, where I spend most of my time, you do feel that. And the general connections, like people make real friendships. People are getting married in VR. Like it's whole relationships.
Tell me about that.
People are getting in whole relationships in VR. Like I literally know people that met their girlfriend in VR.
Really?
Like, yeah, they actually live together in real life, like today. Like it's crazy to think about, but if you brought this up 20 years ago, people were like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
But now it's like, yeah, you can literally just go to Walmart and get a headset and go to a club the same night in VR, and it's a real thing. So I think the morality and humanity side is there because there's like real communities in there, especially in Horizon Worlds. There's so many different communities. You go to like
what's Horizon World?
Horizon Worlds is Meta's VR platform.
Okay.
So they have their own platform where you can go create platforms, but also participate in other people's platforms.
Okay.
People like 2 Chainz have done concerts. Snoop Dogg has done concerts in their platform. So there you'll actually see their real face, but they're performing in front of all the avatars. And it looks like you're in this giant dome, like this whole concert. And it's amazing. It's literally breathtaking. So you have those type of situations, but yeah, so those things exist. And I really believe in like developing stuff like that. So I developed like educational programs, VR programs that are getting taught to like kids over in Africa, in Cape Town, Africa. So stuff like that. And that is really good. But AI, and even Elon Musk mentions his fear of AI. AI is there's nothing to say morality with that. It's over.
Right.
That's over.
Yeah. So that's a good segue to talk about security and safety. There are individuals who may use VR or AI who are already vulnerable to some issues. And so how do you ensure a decent level of safety?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in platforms, you can do a lot of different things. You can control who goes in there. You
Okay.
can make rules of what goes in there. You can make it as private as you want. So a lot of times, if I have like a therapist, I have this setting to it's just them and just one other person in there, and they allow who comes in there. So yeah, you can keep it safe like that. But in VR, they've had some already like some crazy stuff. So like Facebook has had issues. Meta, the same platform I told you about, a lady tried to sue them for sexual harassment in there. She felt like she was getting harassed by a whole bunch of people, and it's crazy to think about getting harassed in VR because you can just take the headsets off and just be done with it. But no, it's a she
It's a
really
real
felt it. Yeah, she
thing.
really felt like it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it really was scary because
Mm-hmm.
when you get in there, it really feels like real. And I've been in there, I've been bombarded by like, kids or grown-ups, and it's like all these different people are in
Wow.
there asking me questions, and it's like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh. So yeah, but so those
Can
things
it be
happen.
hacked? So if I have a therapy group and we all have on the headsets and we are in a virtual reality room or setting, could it be hacked by someone who's not part of that group?
No, the only way, and I wouldn't even call it hacked, but if you have your world set up to where it's not private and public,
Okay.
it's free game. So you can have anybody go in there. And if you have like a public place where, let's just say you just have like a
Mm-hmm.
public session where anybody can come in there. You don't have no rules, you don't have no
Mm-hmm.
age limits. Or you'll get a whole bunch of whoever just wants to be in there. And, like I said, you see their avatar, but you can't really see them. But no, you can make it as private as you want to where nobody's in there. So I've had like questions like that when it comes to like HIPAA and things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature. Is that like one of your fears with the?
Well, absolutely, because safety is paramount. And so if I'm having a group that's supposed to be confidential, the last thing I would want is someone coming into the group who doesn't belong there.
Mhm.
And again, because we take HIPAA pretty seriously, then it would need to be some kind of platform that's HIPAA compliant.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So like, yeah, definitely. And like platforms like Horizon, they make it super private where you can decide who goes in there.
Okay.
You can build your own platforms. Where it's just like building a website, off of something. You can build the same thing on their headset to where you
Hmm.
can make it as private, make it whatever rules you want to make it HIPAA compliant. So I never had any issues with HIPAA. So to me, they're the good guys still. I
Yeah.
haven't had,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's HIPAA compliant. It's
Mhm.
safe. You can set the limits. And so, does it take a techie person to set the limits, or can I set the limits?
Techie person, like you would tell me the
Okay.
limits and I'll just put it in there for you, make it easier.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
have to
yeah.
worry about like who's
Right.
able to come in, and you would set that up.
Right. You can
Okay.
control who comes in, what
Mhm.
times they're allowed to come in. You can keep it open 24/7. You can
Okay.
keep it open like a 7-Eleven, however
Mhm.
you wanted to. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you developed a program for me, let's say a group program that really targeted depression,
Mm.
and 6 months from now the group is doing really well with that particular platform, can I add on to that particular platform,
Yeah.
or do I have to get a whole new
No, you can
uh
add on to it. I mean, the
okay.
sky is really the limit. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I do. I kind of just keep like because I have platforms that have built for people. Literally, the rage room I mentioned earlier, the lady, it
Mhm.
was like a year ago I built it, but she literally asked me the other day to like do some updates for it. But like all of that is still possible. But once I
Okay.
create the platform is yours,
Mhm.
and what you have in it, and then like however you want to go from there. Because as technology grows or everything goes in VR, some things will change because you'll see that, okay, we like that, such and such are really interacting with this game, but
Mhm.
let's take this game out and let's try a whole different game they may want to interact
Right.
with. So, yeah, sky's the limit for sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
So cost. I know
Right.
every program may be different depending on what specs you want. So what should someone look at just in terms of average
Yeah.
cost for a platform?
That's a great question.
Hmm.
And I literally had this question the other day, and I was telling this lady because I was like, if you go with the bigger companies, like they're going to charge more. But
Hmm.
like I said, for me personally, I just like to go within people's budget because that's really a big people's fear with VR is that it's super expensive, and
Right.
they were like, oh, how am I going to get the headsets?
Hmm.
So all these things I try to keep in mind. So I try to make mine's pretty budget friendly.
Hmm.
I tell people I start with anywhere between like 2,000 and it goes up from there. I ask people what they want, and then from there, like I'll break down and give like a tier system,
Okay.
and try to just try to fit in their budget from there. So
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
everyone's
Cool.
different, but yeah,
Yeah. Now, are there any programs that you could develop that provides biofeedback or feedback from the other,
yeah,
or while you are in, I guess, the VR setting?
yeah.
And what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So in platforms outside of Horizon, there's another platform that you can build VR, and it's called Unity.
Hmm.
In Unity, you can do biofeedback. You can do like how people are feeling when certain things happen at that certain time. they've done things like this when it comes to like athletes wearing different wearing headsets. So especially with like quarterbacks, they worked with quarterbacks. They worked with Peyton Manning. Gatorade did this, and they put him in a simulation to where they're running plays. But as he's running the play, they're getting like real life feedback right there, like why he made this decision instead of that decision, why did he pass it here instead of there. So all that stuff is possible on Unity. Verizon, on Horizon side, no, but on Unity, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, 15 years from now,
right?
What should we expect in terms of VR and AI?
Terminator, like no. Yeah. Wait, where do you think it will be?
Again, I just say the sky is the limit. So, I would hope that all things are not computerized, right? Again, I believe that there needs to be a human who's orchestrating all of this and still giving that touch.
Yeah. So, Neil deGrasse Tyson? I think I mentioned him a little bit earlier.
Yes.
He believes in 15 years that AI will completely take over mental health to where they are the therapists. They are literally giving the diagnosis and able to treat it right there on the spot. Very scary, right? I don't know if it's going to get to that extreme, but that's where he thinks it's going, to where it's that precise. And at that point,
you don't even need a human.
You don't need a human at all. That is pretty scary.
Yeah.
What I think about it. But let me ask you this: if it got it right 10 out of 10 times, would it not be worth it? Even if there was no human, if there was a human experience to where the humans got it 7 out of 10 times, but the AI got it 10 out of 10 times, would it not be better to go with the AI?
No.
Really?
No.
Oof.
Because when you think about it, there are a lot of mental health diagnoses that are relational. And I want you to think about this. Healing doesn't happen through communicating, just through talking. Healing happens through an experience. And that's one of the reasons why, even for us at Embark, we do a lot of experiential work, because the experience, the attunement, the safety, the commitment, all of those wrapped together is what leads to healing. And a piece of metal can't do that. A piece of metal can't provide security for you. It cannot provide a level of attunement. And attunement is an interaction, it's engagement, right? It's an experience. And so technology as a standalone cannot offer a human that. So how would healing, how would life-changing, how would life-sustaining healing come about? Only through technology.
I guess when the healing aspect goes, it's like if you have depression and then you're healed from it, you don't have depression anymore, right?
Not necessarily, right? Because depression can be situational, right? But there are also some individuals who need just more than therapy. They need the medication. Sometimes medication may not work. They may have treatment-resistant depression, as we call it. And so they may need other types of treatment like TMS or brain stimulation. So depression can be reoccurring. It's not always just a one and done.
So I guess in that aspect, if there are situations where it could come back if you're doing it, but let's say that AI could fix that to where it never comes back, would you still say it's not worth it?
I don't know, because I can't, at this point, for me, I can't put all of my money just in technology for healing. And that's a little different than, let's say you have a torn ACL, right? And you machine goes in and stitches you up and fixes you up. That's a little different compared to your actual mental health. Where does the processing come in? Again, where does the experience come in? Where does that attunement and all of those other things that lead to healing come in? Only through technology. Would you be just sitting in front of a screen and you asking questions, or that technology asking you questions and then you're responding? Where is the emotionality around that?
Yeah, I think that's the part that is going to be missing for sure. But I guess fear or my trepidation is it going it's not a matter of is it right or wrong, is it just gonna happen whether we like it or not type of
True,
thing.
absolutely.
Because like people like to be lazy, and I think people's
They want it
desire,
quick. Some people want it quick
I
and
think society wants
easy.
it quick. That's the whole
Yeah,
point of
yeah.
like the
Still the
TV
microwave
and
age.
Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Like everything is quick
Mm-hmm.
now. The whole interaction has, I mean, it's not even AI, right? The whole interaction that people have it's just not a thing anymore. I think
Right.
maybe it was TV that started it all. Who knows? Because we sit in front of a TV. Sometimes people sit in front of a TV for hours, and they're
Right.
really not having that connection instead of
Right.
going outside, meeting somebody, having
Mm-hmm.
a conversation. Which all these things, if you think about it, the social aspect, the human aspect, the more you have of that really helps your mental health.
Right.
I guess
Right.
the more we kind of separate that, kind of prevents us from getting there.
Right.
So, where do we go from there?
In some diagnoses, we don't want people to be isolated, right? Like ASD, autism spectrum disorder,
Mhm.
or some depression, um, some anxieties. We just don't want people to be isolated. We need to put them in front of other people, not just a screen.
Yeah, but how do you do
So,
that for the generations that are coming up that are even more into video games, more into TV, more into not talking?
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's our personal responsibility. It is our personal responsibility to safeguard the mental health profession, to number one, knock out stigma,
Mhm.
right? Because there's still a huge stigma around mental health or receiving treatment.
Well, for men,
But yeah,
specifically, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And also through education, like you say, you teach,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so, what are you teaching versus what I may be teaching? Are you teaching that the way to go with mental health and technology is to wipe out the human? I'm going to be on the
Right.
other side of that
Yeah.
saying, no, we may use
Yeah. Yeah.
technology and you still need to sit in front of your client and create that experience.
Yeah.
So, knocking out stigma, psychoeducation around
When you say the
technology.
stigma, do you mean men not wanting to seek out therapy
I mean,
specifically,
stigma
or?
across the board, whether it's men who generally seek out therapy at a lesser rate than maybe females, stigma around who needs treatment, stigma around who receives treatment and how they receive treatment. I think there's so many layers of stigma that we still have to knock out.
And when you say, okay, so I'm going back to the men part because I do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of talking like as mental.
Mm-hmm.
When you're saying the stigma, are you saying that the reasons why men do not seek therapy, or that they actually do, but it seems like they don't?
So men do seek therapy. Men do seek therapy. Men seek therapy at a lower rate than females.
Mhm.
I also think that there are not enough men specific or gender specific therapists. So, for an example, there's a group out of Atlanta, a group of men therapists, psychologists who truly cater and target men's mental health, which I think is amazing. They put out resources, they put out a whole guide for men. They welcome men, not just in a traditional therapy setting, but other types of settings. So, I think that work has to be done around men and
Yeah.
mental health because, again, for so long, it's been stigmatized that
Yeah.
men are weak. Men shouldn't sit and talk to other people about their problems, and men should not go to treatment.
Yeah, and I agree that men definitely should. And then one of the things that I've kind of experienced is talking to so many different therapists. They have mentioned that it's usually women that come in there. And when women come in there, they're usually talking about social issues when it comes to like problems with their marriage, problems with their
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When they have men, it's usually with problems with their jobs, probably with their occupations. But I've always
Most
found,
men came to me for relationship issues.
oh,
Just as a
really?
side note, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
What city was this?
Yeah.
It was in
In
Arizona.
Atlanta.
Okay, Atlanta, of course. Oh,
A little different, but still, right?
No, I was going to ask, was it
And-
Atlanta? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think more men would want to use technology
Yeah.
as a way to receive mental health treatment
Yeah.
versus women?
Absolutely. Yeah, men and women are definitely different. The way we communicate are different, especially with men. If you give a man a purpose and a goal and a way to actually achieve that goal, there's nothing he won't do to do it. So if that means he has to crawl on glass, he'll do that with a smile. If he has to run through a burning building,
All right, say
he'll
that
do
again.
it. He'll definitely do it, and without any hesitation, if you give him that purpose. But in different ways comes with that. So that's another reason why VR has been such a great tool for even for men, because they're able to put themselves into like a gamified situation to where they can feel like they're conquering something.
Yeah.
So
Because do you think it's because they take on a more physical role?
I think it's more just our nature, honestly. I know this kind of sounds like cliche, but I do think just in genuinely that just men and women just think differently. I think when it comes to women that they're just more in tune to when it comes to like social problems, social issues, social awareness. I think men are just more purpose driven. Maybe that could be a stigma with just what society has placed on men, but I think that's what they really genuinely just want to do. They want to conquer. I think men have just always been these conquering, just creatures.
Can you build a program centered on self-esteem then?
I could build anything.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this has been an engaging and amazing conversation about VR, AI, technology. I'm sure we are going to have many more conversations because, again, technology is not something that we can move away from.
Right.
And in fact, as I mentioned, we are also going to be incorporating AI into our mental health practice.
Yeah.
So, what are your last words?
Well, hopefully you don't use it too much, because I know you have the fear of it going haywire, which AI is continuously growing and learning from itself. But I just advise anybody, especially within mental health, as long as you're getting the treatment that you need and deserve is the most important thing. Yes, VR can be a solution, AI can be a solution, but there's nothing that's going to beat those interactions face to face. So hopefully we can stick to that and grow as humans, and especially socially with each other, because when there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. So we'll see how it goes.
Great. So thank you again, Terrance, for joining us on the couch with Behind the Smiles with Dr. Myles, and we'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.